Good evening. My name is Denisha Pendleton, and I'm going to be presenting my critical research presentation. So, over the course of this semester, I have learned a great deal when it comes to working with rural populations as a social worker. The following presentation will focus on my perception as of now um, when it comes to rural lifestyles, alluding to oppression, social and economic justice, and then my own ethics, beliefs, and values. So when I was first given the assignment with the original paper of what my initial thoughts were, when I immediately thought of rural lifestyles, I always alluded to addictions and the opiate epidemic. So now that I've learned and progressed since then, what I know now is that rural areas they do lack resources, and in addition to that, they face many barriers. I've learned the importance of rural lifestyles and how rural communities are particularly disadvantaged in many ways, but on the bright side, they do have some strengths, which are a close knit community. Because, like in urban areas, a lot of them don't know each other. But being that you're in a rural community, of course, you're going to know each other and have that community to support in different ways. But when it comes to oppression, at first, like whenever I was first given this, I used my own personal experience of oppression, working in the CPS system, and I use an example from that. But as I've learned, and then also in the other classes in social policy analysis, I've learned that there's different types of oppression when it comes to rural populations, such as those who are disabled, immigrants, and the LGBTQ community. Those groups can be oppressed due to many factors, and that can be they can be abused, neglected, discriminated, because just those following groups and many others like them, they are easy targets because they are oppressed groups. So in rural communities, they are easy targets to abuse and neglect, and this needs to be addressed, especially in rural communities, because it's a very underreported issue that happens to oppressed individuals. So it's getting to the core of the issue, and just making the community aware of that will, hopefully, and present the oppressed populations and bring it to light and shed light on that epidemic. So, for social and economic justice, when it comes to social problems, I stated originally that we as social workers, as helping professions, we need to be aware of what's going on around us. But in addition to that, and what I've learned now is that yes, knowing what's going on around us is important, but in addition to this, we also have to be advocates. So, in order to support that social justice campaign or issue or anything that we see the need to address, advocacy is very important, especially in rural communities because they have limited resources. So we as social workers have to bring those resources to them and be their advocate and be their voice, especially for these oppressed groups. A lot of the times their voices aren't being heard, so we have to be the voice for them. And it also in rural communities with low rates of protective support such as insurance, literacy, education, all those things are needs that need to be addressed. And so I feel as though like the number one thing when it comes to social justice in rural communities is that advocacy piece. When it comes to ethics, of course, you have the code of ethics, which is very important to our profession. But in addition to that, which I didn't mention in my first presentation, was managing boundaries. In rural communities, it's very important that social workers understand the needs of boundaries, because in rural communities it's so easy to your client can be your next door neighbor, your client can be the girl who works at the corner store who you see every day. So just managing those kind of boundaries in the small community is very important, because I feel as though if you notify the client beforehand and the first, meeting with them, letting them know early in a relationship as possible of discussing reasonable ways of handling potential awkward circumstances that may come up throughout the course of your relationship of knowing that client. Because in the rural community, it's very easy to, you know, see them on the street and that's your client and you didn't even speak to them. So this is an example. So my own beliefs and values. So as I stated before, which is going to be the same thing. I'm going to compare what I've said before. That during the course of my studies and own spiritual growth, I know for me, like my faith will be conflicted with things that I experience when working in communities, whether that be rural or urban. There are many theories in social work which are congruent with my own beliefs, but there are some that I know that's not incongruent. If that's going to be a struggle for me, but at the same time, I have to realize that I cannot press those issues or beliefs onto my clients. That I can only meet them where they are and continue the relationship from there. So, in conclusion, what I've learned through this course is the importance of being an advocate, upholding social justice, and stressing out access for underserved communities. Rural practice requires a complex level of comprehension of qualities, morals, and creative abilities in applying them. A profession such as social work with a declared focus on person and environment, social workers should be expected to tackle issues as it relates to clients' background and upbringing. So, as a whole, the knowledge that I've gained through this course, as it relates to rural communities and the different aspects of reality, will only make me a more effective social worker. So, thank you. It's been a pleasure taking this course.